thank you all for joining one of our first NCS webinars. We've got a couple of really great presenters on, Jamie and Naomi. My name's Tam. I'm one of the technical account managers here over at NCS. I'll be hosting today's webinar. So today's webinar is going to be focused around SME businesses and what they can do to help with their own protection when it comes to cybersecurity. So we'll be looking at things like multi-factor authentication, password security, ensuring your team know what to look out for, particularly when it comes to things like phishing emails and what have you. The main aim of today is to look at how weak security, poor processes, or even simple human error can affect a business and what practical steps can be taken to alleviate that. Although a lot of the people on the webinar are existing NCS customers, there are one or two of you who aren't existing customers just yet. So I'd like to just do a bit of an intro about NCS. We've been around for 32 years, and although technology has changed quite a bit in that time, the aim of NCS has stayed pretty simple, and that is to help businesses keep their systems running and support them when they need it, and make sensible decisions around their IT without overcomplicating things. And as well as being around for many, many years, we also hold 1 or 2 certificates and accreditations. So probably no surprise, we are Cyber Essentials Plus, as well as ISO 9001, ISO 27001, and a large part of our team are made up of engineers and support staff to ensure our customers receive a consistent level of service no matter what the problem is. And because our customers are speaking to our because our engineers are speaking to our customers on a daily basis, we know how important it is for them to understand the current cyber risks out there and what impact that can have on a business. So with all that said, I'd like to introduce our presenters for today. So first up is Naomi Haynes, who is the Commercial Manager for the Northwest Cyber Resilience Centre. Naomi will be sharing advice around the current cyber risks affecting small businesses or SME businesses and the importance of building a better cyber awareness across a business. We'll then hear from Jamie Akhtar. Jamie is the co-founder and CEO of CyberSmart, one of our cybersecurity partners. Jamie will be talking about Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus, and also covering a little bit around the new certification DCC, and looking at those controls and how they can help improve a company's security baseline. Put my teeth back in. Please ask any questions throughout the webinar. There is a Q&A section. We have our Andrew, our technical director, managing those. And if there's any questions specific for Naomi and Jamie, we'll direct those at the relevant person. So I'll hand over to you, Naomi.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. My name is Naomi Haynes. I'm the Cyber Resilience Manager at the Northwest Cyber Resilience Centre. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an introduction about the Cyber Resilience Centres, who we are and what we're doing. Just give you a little bit of background and talk a bit about cybercrime and a couple of little steps that you can do to keep your business resilient from those cyber criminals. So in terms of who we are, police-led initiative, supporting SMEs in the reduction of cybercrime against businesses. Ultimately, that's what we're here to do. A lot of cybercrime happens due to poor cyber postures, awareness, just a lack of understanding, a lack of, putting simple things in place. So a lot of it can be avoided, or at least the risk can be dramatically reduced if you can put some simple things in place. So this is what we do. We're here to support SMEs in that. So we speak to all sectors, business sizes up to medium size. We deal and speak to people that have absolutely no understanding about cyber awareness. That they'll say they're not technical. That goes over their head, and then all the way up to people that are on a journey. They may have Cyber Essentials Plus, and they may have put some things in place, but they're just looking for support on what to do next and how to prioritise next steps. So it's quite broad. So we're part of a network of CRCs, Cyber Resilience Centres, so 9 centres across England and Wales. So if you're not from the Northwest, there will be a Cyber Resilience Centre near you in your area, and be sure to reach out to them. So, what are the risks to businesses? So, we hear about cyber attacks a lot on the news. They make the big headlines, but around 43%. So, from 2025, this is from the government cyber breaches survey, slightly out of date now. There's just been a new one released for 2026. But roughly the same, similar figures, 43% of businesses have reported some type of breach. This is what we know about. What we do know is grossly underreported for many different reasons, for fear of, getting in trouble. Some people simply don't know who to report it to. Is it a police issue? Where do they report their accounts being hacked and things like that? Uh, and fear of reputational damage as well. So we know that this figure could be potentially be a lot higher. And roughly 8.58 million estimated cyber crimes in the last year. Just to put it into a bit of context to how extensive cyber crimes are and attacks are, it's huge, and as technology evolves, so do the criminals. They're looking for new and weird and wonderful ways to get round and use the new technologies to their advantage. So yeah, it's a big problem. So, despite these numbers, 31% of businesses have conducted risk assessments. So, if you're a business that hasn't conducted a risk assessment, it's a really great place to start for any business to understand the risk in each area. So, looking at your technical controls, looking at your policies and things like that, things what you have in place, are they sufficient? And obviously things that you haven't got in place where you could start to prioritize and put them in place. And only 14% of businesses train their staff in cybersecurity. And this is not to train them in how to be a cyber expert in terms of, doing anything technical. This is about awareness. Awareness about your employees to understand the risks to your business. Because ultimately they're the ones that will help you protect your business from, things like phishing, which is a real big problem. And only 20% of businesses have tested their responses. For those that have put things in place, which is great, think technology moves so fast, things go out of date so quickly. It's really important to keep on top of those products or services that you're implementing to make sure that they are still fit for purpose, and they're still doing what they need to be doing. Otherwise, it becomes a waste of money quite quickly. So the impacts to business, we've got things like financial loss. So we hear about this a lot in the news, the amounts of money that's bandied about. It's particularly around the JLR attack, one of the big UK's most costliest cyber attacks in UK history. So money is mentioned a lot. But when you're a small to medium-sized business, that money value is obviously quite a lot lower than the millions and billions that we talk about with Jaguar Land Rover. It's a lot lower. However, the impact of this loss is really significant when you're a smaller business. It could be the difference between you staying alive and staying afloat and not, quite bluntly. So financial loss is a big important factor there. Second to that, or not second to that, equal to that is data loss. So data is currency. Cyber criminals know this. They can sell your data on the dark web and make money from it, or they can hold you to ransom for it as well. So they can steal it from you and say, hey, we've got your data. You need to pay us X amount of Bitcoin to get it back. Otherwise, we're going to release it and probably sell it anyway. So either way, they're looking at making money. And obviously with the ICO, there's potential risk of fines with that data. And businesses have a responsibility to protect their data. There is data that's relevant to the business and there's data that's sensitive. Okay, so there's different categories of data that you need to be considerate of when thinking about protecting your data. Business disruption. So I'll refer to the Jaguar Land Rover case again. They shut their production systems down, making those cars for 5 weeks. I think it was 5 or 6 weeks. They had to switch everything off and they were not able to make any cars during that time. So that's an example of business disruption. But from an SME perspective, it could be that you don't have access to your emails. You're not able to respond to any sales invoices, sales inquiries. You're not able to produce or manufacture your products that you're making. So it could look at it in many different formats. It could be that your members of staff have not got access to the things that they need to do their job. So you've got to manage a number of team members that are just simply unable to do any work as well. And that itself is a business disruption because instead of doing what you would normally do, you're having to manage a whole team of people that are no longer able to do any work. And then ultimately a loss of business. So with all that happening, your clients, your customers may go elsewhere to get the services that they need, and they may not come back ultimately. So there's a risk of them, ideally you would love for them to stay and be patient with you while you fix and sort of work through the cyber attack. But ultimately, if they need a product and they need it now, they're going to go elsewhere and they just might simply not come back. So the biggest threats are phishing. So around 85% of attacks come through a phishing method. Okay, so this is a really large percentage and a big route in for attackers. You will all have probably received some type of phishing email in your inboxes or junk spams, work inboxes. The filters are working extremely hard to try and filter them out, but they still get through, they still bypass. My partner had one literally yesterday in his inbox, in his focused inbox in a Microsoft, and it was, the attachments had mobile config on there, and if it had clicked on one of them, they would have taken over his device. And it's just awful. It's just a constant attack. Really successful for cyber criminals, right? The reason why they do this is because it's quick and easy. They could fire out 10,000 phishing emails at the click of a button, and all they need is one person to click on it, and it's been a success. And whether that's them putting their credit card details in, or putting their credentials in, or clicking on a malicious link, it's a success out of the 1 out of the 10,000. Whereas we need to be sort of dodging and weaving them all the time, every time they come in. So it's a really difficult challenge for us. And we're human beings, we make mistakes, and this is why it's successful, because we get busy. There's a coincidence, we've got a package coming that day, and we get a packaging, a phishing text or whatever it might be. So yeah, it's very difficult to keep on top of. And this is why the awareness side of it for you and the staff, your team members, is really important to have that culture of awareness around phishing, because it's one of the biggest risks. Over the Northwest, so we work very closely with all the local police forces from all the different areas, so Cumbria to Cheshire, Merseyside, Lancashire, Greater Manchester, and their Protect teams have released figures around the top 3 cyber attacks, reported cyber crimes in across the Northwest. And believe it or not, social media takeovers was in the top 3. So in a lot of areas, it was actually number 1. So social media takeovers, a lot of business, when you think about a lot of businesses, are using social media channels to promote their business extensively. They build up a lot of content on there, a lot of following, but they're not really considered by businesses as an asset that they need to protect within their business. And criminals use this to their advantage. They hack the account, usually because of weak passwords and no two-factor authentication, and they try and ransomware them back, ask for some money to get that account back. And if anyone's ever had their social media account taken over or hacked, you'll know that you can't just ring Mark Zuckerberg up and ask for your Facebook back, because he's not available, unfortunately, and it's really difficult to get any kind of social media accounts back. So really worth protecting there. Just if you are a business that's sort of using social media, have a think about that and think about how you can protect it and make it a bit stronger in your protection. Then we've got ransomware. Ransomware is the one that you hear about in the news. So it makes the big headlines. Usually it targets the bigger organizations, which is what you get on the news. However, it does impact smaller organizations. So we speak to businesses a lot. We've had businesses that make sort of the high vis vests for work, like work clothing and steel toe cap boots and things like that. Ransomware attack. It's again, like I said, you think about it, it's just big businesses that get this, and this is what you hear about in the news. But it absolutely can happen to you and your smaller business, and you can just be a victim of this type of attack just by clicking on a malicious link. They don't really care what size you are necessarily. Okay, and then you've got fraud and impersonation. So this is quite popular for SMEs. We hear about this a lot when we talk to SMEs. So this is where you get the email scams, pretending to be the boss or pretending to be a client that's changed their bank details. Please update the invoice bank details to this. We also get the quite common gift card scam on this one as well. It's very popular. We've spoken to people that have spent £1,000 out of petty cash going getting gift cards that have fallen for this scam. Also, somebody that actually went and paid some money on their own credit card as well to go and get gift cards. So they unwittingly became a victim of fraud personally outside of work because they use their own credit card. So it's very a popular one as well, and really important for staff to be aware of. We talk about things like what's normal in your job role, like what's normal in your business. Is it normal that you guys use gift cards? You know, is that a normal thing? If it isn't, then we should be questioning this. You know, if one of your team members get an email saying, "Oh, the boss is in the meeting, I need to go and get some gift cards," they need to be thinking, okay, this is not a normal, normal scenario here, and ask somebody. This is about culture of asking people and not being frightened to sort of say, hey, don't really think this is right. Do you want to check this for me? And encouraging people to do that. So I'm just going to run you through phishing really quickly. So an estimated 3.4 billion emails are sent every single day globally. It's a real big problem. And around, well, I mentioned that already, 85% of attacks come through phishing. So just in a nutshell, quite simply, it is a criminal that's sending a fake email. They trick you into visiting a fake website, and victims will ultimately give over some type of sensitive information. So that could be your security credentials, that could be your credit card information, or it could be that you've clicked on a malicious link that downloads some software onto your device. And then for context, for Google alone, they're blocking 100 million phishing emails every single day. So it's a big problem. So these big organizations are doing their best to obviously try and stop this problem and filter them. But the criminals are just, trying to be one step ahead all the time. And that's why we do see them in our inboxes. The different types of phishing. So we've got a couple of different names here. I'm not responsible for these names, by the way. So we've got spear phishing. So this is a targeted phishing attempt. So they might know your name. They might know the name of your boss. They might know the name of the company that you work for. So they've done a little bit of research. So it's a little bit separate to the standard just blank blank approach phishing. They've done a little bit of research on you, so they're trying to target you basically. The next one we've got is smishing. So this is SMS. Anyone old enough to remember when we used to call it SMS? Me. So this is smishing. Texts usually get things like HMRC on this one, around about March, February, March time. We get delivery ones on this one as well. So there's different delivery providers, particularly around Christmas, leading up to Christmas. The other one that I've seen on this one is anyone remember the earthquakes in Turkey a few years ago? There was a lot of charitable organisations, and there was a lot of people that fell for the charity donation phishing, smishing text that went out around that time. So they rely on current affairs as well. So what's going on in the world, they will adapt that into some sort of an attack. Vishing is the voice phishing as well, which I think actually has got quite good recently. Some of the robots that are speaking to you. I mean, I can see why people would fall for them. Genuinely, if you didn't know, you weren't speaking, it was a robot. They're very convincing. So yeah, I mean, I don't have a landline. I've not had a landline for years, but they don't care now, do they? It used to be on the landline, and now it's on the mobile. So big problem. And then we've got whaling as well. So whaling is a little bit like spearfishing. However, there's a lot more effort goes into it because they want to get the big fish. So the big CEO, the big boss, the directors, the people at the top of the business. It's a targeted attack to them, and it's quite a lucrative attack should they be successful. So it's worth them putting that extra effort in to try and fish this person or people. Because then they've got the whole organization that they're able to sort of work their way through and potentially conduct a number of different attacks via that one person or one or two people at the top of the organization. So that's the different types of phishing there that you can get. Here is a very basic example of a phishing email. And in normal trade, this is a bit from our training, so we would ask you to sort of pick out and highlight certain red flags, if you like. So I'm just going to talk you through them there. So we've got things like the from address being, in brackets there, the xht@gmail. The reply to address is different, so that's suspicious. The urgency that's created within phishing emails, they want you to react quickly, without thinking. And they also want to block you from contacting them. So please don't contact me. I can't answer the phone. I'm not available. So they want you to react quickly and not ask anybody basically. So this is part of our training that we offer that I've pulled out there. Okay, and then in terms of a quick one on social media as well. So how can they use social media? This is a fabricated example of a social media post that's been done by one of our ethical hackers that work for the CRC. Really good example. So Ellie, she's celebrating a birthday. She's very happy, and she's talking about what's going on in her life. And as part of the training, we asked people to sort of pick out, if you were thinking like a criminal now and you were an attacker, what information could you use that could potentially be at risk to Ellie? What would you pull out? And some of the things that you could call out would be, the date, the year of birth in the handle, in the tag, the name tag. The fact that so you could work out pretty much her full birthday from this post. You can get her favorite drink, her favorite restaurant, family members, and potentially new address or a partial address, the name of a first child. So all in, I mean, this is an extreme example, right? But this, you would only need to go through someone's Facebook, and check a couple of posts to be able to pull out this information. It's very easily done. So, and then we've created a bit of a profile of the information, so a bit of a person profile there of what people can see in terms of information that's available based on that one post. So we pretty much got a family tree. I would imagine it wouldn't be too difficult if you were a cyber criminal to go on to the rest of the family members and figure out their date of births as well. And then potential attacks that could happen would be a spear phishing attack based on an Aperol Spritz promotion or a restaurant voucher. I'm sure Ellie would be really happy to receive one of those. And then further to that, other risks are fraud and ID theft. So my previous background is actually in fraud and ID theft for a private industry. And this happens, it's very, very common to be getting credit accounts, loans, cars, things like that, using, personal data like this. So the message here is obviously from a business perspective, being careful about what you're posting, because we understand you've got to use it as a shop window and share with people what you're doing. Think about your staff. Is there a policy in place to manage and the risk around what your staff are posting about your business to manage that risk as well? So how does the Northwest CRC help? So we offer completely free support, fully funded by the Home Office as of January this year. We can do presentations, we can come and do workshops. So in the picture there, you've got a cyber escape room workshop, because we work very closely with the Northwest Regional Organised Crime Unit and the other local protect teams across all the forces. And we can come in and do inputs like that in your business, which are really fun and engaging. And we're offering one-to-ones, free one-to-ones to talk to us, which is on the QR code there. But we can offer a small selection of cyber services to businesses that we think are suitable to get you going on your resilience journey. It will take you so far, and then obviously we can, with the likes of the NCS in supporting you in further support after that, in terms of what we can offer. So it's quite limited, but it's completely free what we can do for you as well, to give you an understanding. Further to that, we've got access to different resources. So this is an example of the Cyber Action Toolkit from the National Cyber Security Centre. This is a pre-Cyber Essentials tool. If you're thinking about working towards Cyber Essentials, this might be worth picking up and in getting you ready for something like Cyber Essentials. It's designed for 50 and under, this one from the NCSC. And then just key takeaways. So switch on things like two-factor authentication, really important. Security is a layered approach, and if you've got a really strong password in place, You should have two-factor authentication in as well, because if they do get your password from a phishing email, then the two-factor authentication will stop them in their tracks. Cyber criminals are usually quite lazy; they'll move on, So just try to stop them in every opportunity where you can. Make sure you're updating regularly to make sure you've got the latest security updates on all your devices, including phones, laptops, iPads, tablets, whatever. Make sure you're backing up your data. So if you are unfortunate enough to be attacked, you've got access to your backups, and you can get going as quickly as possible. Staff training, preparing for the worst, incident response, having a plan in place should that happen. The quicker you can get back up and running. Cyber Action Toolkit, which was what I've just shown you, and then Cyber Essentials, a great way to demonstrate resilience as well. And there you go. I think that's everything from me there.
Thanks, Naomi.
You're very welcome.
That was really interesting. Unfortunately, there's been no questions come through on whilst you've been presenting, but I did just want to ask. I mean, for the people who are attending, what one thing would you recommend to certainly business owners or even their staff? What sort of security change would they need to do? Just if it was just one simple change that they may not have in place currently, or they're looking at this type of thing and wondering if they're at risk. What sort of changes could they take away today?
Well, there's a couple of different things. The fact that they're on this webinar in the first place is really great, because I always get people to really start to think about your cyber posture. Think about it and start actioning small things towards it. Because I understand everyone's busy, and not everyone's a cyber expert. But one key takeaway: if you've not got two-factor authentication switched on, multi-factor authentication, I would strongly recommend you go through all your software tools and you look at the settings and you try and I know it's annoying. I know it's kind of one of them things we've got to get the code and it's annoying, but the value of having that on could be the difference between an attacker phishing you and getting your password, because you've seen the numbers on phishing, so it's likely that you might accidentally put something in, put your credentials in, but if you've got two-factor authentication in place, that will be the blocker, and then they get bored and they move on to the next person who hasn't got two-factor authentication in.
And I think with multi-factor as well, it is becoming part of our lives, even outside of work. If I use my credit card on any sort of high purchase, I'm having to use my phone to verify it. So it is becoming a lot more. We're becoming used to it outside of work. It's not just our IT manager.
Yeah, and I think it's just for a lot of people, it's just understanding the actual value. It's really, really valuable to put in. So if anything else, do that, and then training as well, awareness for your staff.
Of course.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Right, well, what take too long? I want to hand over to Jamie now. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. It's super interesting, actually. I mean, I've been in cyber for 15 years and yet still learn something pretty much every other day. So it was really nice to hear the stories and it brought to life. I do feel quite scared, though, petrified. So hopefully in this section, we're going to demystify a bit and give people some practical stuff they can take away as well. We work closely with the Cyber Resilience Centres, or the CRCs, as well. We're a national ambassador, so we work with some really large organisations to drive resilience across the UK. My particular passion and interest in how we can raise the baseline for SMEs, and I feel like they are the most in need of this support and guidance. And actually, you a great example you mentioned around two-factor authentication. Simple step can make a massive difference in reducing the likelihood of something bad happening. And if it does, it's going to reduce the impact of that happening as well. So yeah, I echo what you were saying. Thank you everyone for making the time as well. So I've been in cyber a long time, and I started CyberSmart about a decade ago, so about 10 years ago, to really focus on how we can lift the baseline. And one of the things we do really, really well, and we help businesses get through Cyber Essentials certification. So we've helped and issued over 25,000 certifications to date, so the largest certification body in the UK. So I want to share more details on what that scheme is, how to get started. And we also, I guess, a bit of a special section. We're going to talk a bit about defense cyber certification. So if you're in aerospace or defense or manufacturing and potentially looking to work with that part of the sector, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. It's a newer scheme. But feel free to ask any questions throughout, and we'll get to those as well. CyberSmart was born out the, as it was formerly known, GCHQ, so the donut building, one that looks very weird in Cheltenham, now known as the National Cybersecurity Centre, or the NCSC. And the NCSC, about 10 years or 12 years ago now, they were scratching their heads looking at this cyber problem, because a lot of companies back then, as they are today, were getting breached. And the NCSC has a pretty unique view in that whenever there's any major incidents, people report it to them. And so they started to look at through all the incidents that were happening 12 years ago. And they said, actually, most of these incidents come down to us not having what are called controls, so gates, in other words, in place. And if those gates are put in place, we can significantly reduce the chances of something happening. And at the time, they talked about 80% being the level of risk reduction. And so they turned that into a standard, Cyber Essentials. And I think pretty remarkably in the technology space, those 5 controls that the scheme launched with 12 years ago are still the ones that you hear about today. So they cover things like user access control, which includes multi-factor authentication, which we've talked about. They also cover stuff like patching and keeping your devices up to date, really, really important nowadays. And so I think I'm very impressed the standard has stood the test of time. And really interestingly, about a month ago, the CEO of the National Cybersecurity Centre wrote a blog post on Frontier AI. So you might be hearing a lot about AI and Mythos and ChatGPT and what it can do when it comes to security research, exploiting vulnerabilities, etc. And the recommendation that Richard made in his blog post was do Cyber Essentials. And the analogy I always use is with AI is we've got some really good sophisticated safe crackers now, but most people leave their front door and their safe door wide open. So actually you don't need a safe cracker if you haven't patched your device in 3 years, or people haven't set up, or they're using their birthday as their password or something like that. So really, really good foundational standards. So Cyber Essentials specifically essentially helps organizations protect themselves from the most common cyber attacks. So it's often referred to as commodity cyber attacks. And Naomi referred to some of the ways they might do that. So phishing, and it's often a mass campaign that is hoping to find any open doors. It's kind of like a burglar running around a street and trying all the doors and seeing which one's open, seeing which ones don't have the lights on. That's really what they're trying to do. So Cyber Essentials basically closes all those doors and makes sure that it's not easy to get into an organization. But more importantly, and for a lot of organizations, it's a really good commercial thing to do. So it allows you to demonstrate to your customers that you're safe and secure. Ultimately, I think it provides a lot of confidence to, if there's probably quite a lot of business owners or directors, executives on the call, it gives you confidence that your organization has taken the right steps when it comes to this. And if something does happen, you can at least say, we've done everything that was reasonable to implement that. And there is, I'll talk a little about Cyber Essentials, Cyber Essentials Plus, and the process. So Cyber Essentials is what's called a verified self-assessment. So you go through a series of questions and you put information on, do you know what devices you have across your organization? Do you know what mobile devices do you have across your organization? So you answer a series of questions that then gets reviewed by an auditor, so someone who's qualified to audit the results digitally, and they will then provide you feedback. And once they're comfortable that you have all the controls in place as per the standard or the scheme, they'll then issue your Cyber Essentials certificate. So that process can take, if you've got everything in place, a day or so. If you have a bit of work to do, it can take a couple of weeks to get those things in place. Now, Cyber Essentials Plus is the same standard. It doesn't change any of the controls or add any additional things you need to do. The only difference is that the auditor will actually verify that the technical controls are actually in place. So this will involve things like sending you a series of simulated phishing emails and seeing if they get blocked, or if those files will run on your device or not. So if that was a genuine malware, you want to make sure if you're clicking it, it's not just going to pop up and start running, for example. They'll look at things like 2FA and they'll log into a few of the accounts with you remotely and make sure that 2FA has been set up. So they're basically just making sure what you said on the questionnaire actually happens in practice as well. So it's really good and a starting point. Start with the Cyber Essentials, which is a prerequisite for Cyber Essentials Plus, and then get the technical validation as well to give you even greater peace of mind. And feel free to, if you've still got any questions, I'm happy to go into the technical aspects as well, but I'll try and keep it fairly high level. But Cyber Essentials is really important. And as Naomi was talking, I thought back to a couple of conversations I've had with business owners. One about 2 weeks ago, small business, two individuals set up distributing mobile phones. And they talked about an incident they had about 4 years ago. They've only just started talking about it. So one of the biggest impacts that is often not talked about, so there's a financial impact, there's the data loss, there's a business interruption, but it's the emotional and the human impact of cybercrime is massive. Like, they couldn't talk about what happened to them for 4 years, lost about 100K, actually a combination of initially phishing, so took their login credentials, didn't have 2FA set up, and then later on it was invoice fraud. So it was a chain of attacks or a chain of things that happen in order to lead them to transferring, actually releasing a load of goods in their case, where the customer transferred about 100K to their account and it never arrived. So there's the real importance, I would say. Obviously the stuff on screen is really good as well, but the foundation of this is it's risk reduction, is making sure that never happens to your organization. Or the chances of it happening are massively reduced. And if it does, the impact of it is going to be massively reduced. So I think, I won't go through these in detail, but essentially it's about making your business more resilient, more making you as owners and directors in the business more confident in what you're doing, and also generate more commercial opportunity as well. So I say a no-brainer because we'll talk a bit about what you need to do, but it's a relatively straightforward thing. This isn't a 6-month project where you're going to have to spend tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds. It's something that is affordable, accessible. It's designed to be that way. There are tens of thousands of organizations all across the UK, all shapes and sizes that have done this. So it's a really good baseline. I'm going to pause on Cyber Essentials for a little bit and talk a bit about the Defence Cyber Certification, and then come back a bit to practical next steps across both of these as well. So about a year ago, the MOD, the Ministry of Defence, decided they were going to move their supply chain. So the MOD, as many of you might know, works with tens of thousands of direct suppliers, and they work with hundreds of thousands of suppliers further down their supply chain, so tier 2, tier 3 suppliers. So everything from putting together a plane, for example, that is used by the military, to the nuts and bolts that go into their plane, every aspect of that, it forms part of their supply chain. And if one of their suppliers has a cyber incident, it could potentially be pretty significant. And the Ministry of Defence and the defence sector more generally has more people that are interested in their data than just criminals. Other nations are also interested in things like blueprints or architectural diagram, or understanding what capabilities the UK has when it comes to defending itself. So they are particularly interested in how they can protect and assure their supply chain. And what they decided is that the previous way of assuring their supply chain, which is primarily paper-based, so we send out a document to everyone once a year, you fill it in, you tell us what you've got in place, we'll take that as true, and we'll see you again in another year, doesn't work for actually delivering the outcome and reducing the risk in the supply chain. So they introduced something called Defence Cyber Certification. For those of you in this space, you can read up about this. It's all on the MOD's website. So they introduced this scheme. And so what it does is very similar to Cyber Essentials, or the layers on top of it, in that someone will actually go and verify that what you've written on your questionnaire is actually happening in real life. And so we're starting to see this come down through some of the larger suppliers like BAE, who are then asking their supply chain of, hey, listen, the government's asked us to make sure our suppliers are doing this stuff. How can we help you with that process as well? And this is something that you can look at as part of Cyber Essentials. So DCC level 0. So there's 4 levels in Defence Cyber Certification. Level 0, I'll only talk about that one today because the others get considerably more complex. Level 0 includes 3 controls, one of which is to have Cyber Essentials, second of which is to do everything you need around GDPR. Remember that? I mean, it seems like a long time ago. Still the law, still a requirement. And make sure you've got secure system and network. So only 3 controls in level 0. So actually a pretty achievable thing if you can do that. The Ministry of Defence have actually stated that they would like everyone to do this by the end of this year. So they're being more explicit in timelines and what they expect from there. So relatively simple and accessible. I won't talk about the other levels because they're a massive step up. If you are interested, happy to explore that further or in the questions. So I've run through the 3 things as part of level 0, relatively straightforward. Probably takes a few days or so if you've got this in place to get through the process. A couple of weeks if you don't have this stuff in place. So just zooming back out to both Cyber Essentials and Defence Cyber Certification. So some of the things we often hear around, like the concerns around potentially implementing this or maintaining it, and like, you know, we all, I think, Naomi, you allude to this, we're all busy people. We've all got things we need to do. And most business owners' job isn't being experts in cybersecurity. Most people's job is to run their business, make sure they can pay their staff at the end of the month, deliver their product or service to their customers. So Cyber Essentials is really designed to be an accessible scheme. And by accessible, I mean it doesn't cost a lot of money. It doesn't take you a lot of time, especially if you're working with a partner. And it should be understandable in plain English. It shouldn't be technically complex either. So many organizations have most of this stuff in place already. So there might be a few gaps that you need to close. So you might not have an asset list, for example. So you can work with your MSP on CS to basically pull that together. So you've got that. You need that for Cyber Essentials, but you actually need it to run your business effectively and manage your IT as well. The requirements are focused, practical. One of the things I always say is a lot of the stuff you do in Cyber Essentials is also applicable to your personal life too. So and Naomi alluded to this, part of the staff training, when you talk about 2FA, talk about you want to be setting this up on your own Instagram and your Facebook and your own email too, because this makes you less likely as an individual to have an incident that could affect you. Like personal fraud and crime is massive, as well as the business element too. So a lot of this is really practical, straightforward stuff. There's nothing strange or weird in here. You'd be like, oh, that doesn't sound like it makes sense. It's all pretty relatable. So one of the things when I was speaking to Tamblyn about this before is if you already work with a managed service provider like NCS, they're already doing almost all of this stuff. Like 90% of the stuff is already in place. They're already making sure that you've been patched and you're up to date, that you have a list of all your devices, that there's some security tooling that's readily available, that your firewall's been configured, and that you're monitoring for anything that is unusual and pops up as well. So 9 times out of 10, NCS is already going to know where you're at on that journey and what because they're managing your controls today. So right at the top, I talked about government sitting down and saying these 5 areas. Most managed service providers that are progressive and want to assure their customers are already doing these things on your behalf. So the certification step is really just confirming that's the case and getting the nice badge to prove it. So finally, next step. So speak with your NCS account manager. I think there's a few of them that have joined to listen into this call, but speak to your account manager about, hey, what would it take for us to get to Cyber Essentials? Ask your customers or any contractual requirements as well, especially if you're in large supply chains or large organization supply chains. There is something you may have heard of called the Cyber Resilience Pledge. It's a big push from government, and it's going to be it was introduced at Cyber UK. That's a big government conference for cybersecurity earlier on this year, and it's going to be formally launched. I think it's going to be later on this month. We've got like a big splash coming on about that. So some of these really large organizations are going to be asking their suppliers in the coming months, like, do you have Cyber Essentials? Do you have Cyber Essentials Plus? How long is it going to take you to get it? So you can get ahead of any of those requirements. Have a look at your current position. This is what NCS can do. They can say, listen, you've got these 6 things. And the things that they're likely to find in terms of their gaps are you've got people using their personal devices, and that's okay. That's completely fine for Cyber Essentials, but we need to make sure they're also secure and up to date, and they have the same controls as your company devices as well. So those are some of the common gaps. Others might be you've got multi-factor authentication set up on some things, but you haven't put it on everything. So it's a case of making sure that's all there. So NCS can build you a practical plan and work through that. And hopefully everyone on the call in a couple of months' time will be Cyber Essentials certified, because it's a really, really good scheme. It's something that once you've done as well, it's very easy to maintain. So on that note, I'll stop there. We'll move to questions. Anything for Naomi? Anything for me? Anything broader? I know we've gone pretty.
I think we've got a couple in there. So somebody's actually asked about using password vaults and whether they could be a potential problem in the future. I don't know if either one of you guys can answer that.
I'm happy to take that one. The password vaults and managers are a really, really good tool, because they allow you to generate unique and strong passwords for all your sites. So I have hundreds of passwords in my password vault, and all of them are different passwords. And that means that if one of those websites got compromised, or I went to the wrong website, and they also stop you going to the wrong website because they won't autofill, for example. So they're really, really good. There was a little bit of controversy and some news around some of the password managers a few years ago, and they weren't necessarily storing the credentials in the right way. One of the things I would say to look for when you're choosing password manager is that your passwords are end-to-end encrypted. So even the password manager company can't look at your passwords or access them. So it's additional steps. You'll get stuff like a recovery key you have to keep locally in order to get into there. But password managers, really good recommendation. Also, most of them support passkeys, which are, so passkeys are an alternative way of authenticating. Instead of you using a password, you can save a passkey into your password vault, and it's a more secure way of doing so. So I shouldn't get so technical. I'm quite passionate about password managers too.
No, I just want to add to that. I think 15 years ago, our average passwords were around 6 or 7 passwords on average per person, and now they're at something like 190. So they have a real good place. But Jamie's absolutely right. Make sure you're doing your research. Make sure you're going with a reputable company. The end-to-end encryption that you mentioned. It's important to look for those things, and also making sure that you have got a really strong and unique password to access the password vault, or the password locker, to get in there, and that is really nice and secure for your access, like you said, like a password key as well. So yeah, I agree with that.
I think you kind of covered the other question that we had there from Jeremy as well about the different versions. So I did have one question for you, Jamie, just obviously around DCC. I mean, I expect companies or suppliers who are working with defence contractors and in that supply chain are having to get on top of this straight away. But are you seeing a surge with other companies out there who've got CE+, but they're now looking at DCC 0? Just because, I mean, it's only 3 controls. It's a fairly unintrusive accreditation. So
yeah, we've seen a lot of interest and awareness of the scheme. I think the thing we haven't seen is necessarily action behind it, and that is part because of the general collective way we approach regulation and compliance. Like, a lot of organisations just won't do anything until they're told they have to do it. So we're having a lot of people ask about it, but less people say, okay, I need to get certified, because there is no deadline for them, for many of them yet. That's been enforced. The blog post I shared is pretty new. That came out like a couple of weeks ago from Eleanor Fairfield. So yeah, I think there'll be quite a few more communications trickling down from the prime contractors, BAE, etc., as well as the Ministry of Defence, because they'll realise not many people are going to do it until they tell them they really need to do it.
Yeah. I mean, do you think over the next couple of years we're going to see CE and CE Plus is just going to become an absolute standard? If you're transacting with companies, whatever field they're in, you need CE.
Yeah, I think so. That's what we see in our data, and the government publish a lot of data in this. So it's the scheme has been growing about 20% year on year for the last 10 years. So we're now at 50,000, 60,000 plus certificates issued in the last 12 months type number. There's still a lot of work to do to reach more organizations, but almost all the messaging you see from National Cybersecurity Centre or government is related to Cyber Essentials, the absolute minimum we expect businesses and organizations, including charities and public sector, to meet. It's the minimum to operate a business today. So yeah, I think we will continue to see that trend happen.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. I mean, you clearly got behind the right industry at the right time, Jamie.
Well, when we first started, we were helping people one by one, and almost everyone had the same set of challenges. Like, this is so difficult. It's not accessible. It's a pain. It takes us lots of time to get through. It wasn't very expensive, but it was the time and the effort. And so we really focus on how do we make it as accessible as possible to as many organizations as possible. So yeah, timing and lots of effort, I guess, is probably the key.
Yeah. I mean, one thing, and I've actually heard this outside of work, when people are trying to position Cyber C or C plus to their FD or MD, it can be quite a tough shout, because quite often they don't actually see anything tangible for the few £1,000s or whatever it might cost to get to that stage. What's the best way they can put that to their bosses and make it,
Well, I would just say, I would just add to that we can come in and do boardroom style presentations, so we can help them understand, why there is a need to have cyber controls in place. But it is a challenge, isn't it? No tangible outcome is an outcome for cybersecurity. You don't want things to happen, and that's where the investment is. But it's quite difficult sometimes to convince people of that.
Yeah, I think one thing I've heard that is quite, well, I've heard is really effective, is talking about what others in the industry are doing. And so if you're speaking to the MD or FD, so everyone else who works in our industry has this already or is going to do it, and we might lose contracts for it. So usually the finance people care about if this is going to impact your bottom line. They just see the cost in the short term. That being said, I think most FD, like our CFO, is super clued up on, obviously we're a cybersecurity company, but actually super clued up on cyber risk and managing cyber risk. So investing in things like our ISO 27001 and our own security is paramount. Like it's not a negotiation, because we just have to do that. So I think if you educate them firstly, and then talk about the commercial benefits of doing it, as well as the risk management side, you can usually have a more productive conversation. Always bring Naomi in. They can knock them down, and they'll be spending 10 times more than when you walked in.
They go, but it's okay, you can fix it, it's fine, you can just invest in this.
We've had one other question. Oh, sorry, two other questions. Do you recommend doing CE first and then CE plus, or does it not matter?
Yeah, so that you have to do CE to do CE plus, but it's also if you are looking to do CEP and Cyber Essentials Plus in the future, you start with Cyber Essentials and then add it on within 3 months. So you have a 3-month time frame to do it. But yeah, the initial questionnaire is a prerequisite for the technical audit.
And so I'm just trying to read off my colleague's laptop. How seriously are the police taking cybercrime now? Has that changed over the last few years?
I mean, the law enforcement very seriously, as with any other crime, they deal with it the best way that they can do. In terms of resources, it's a difficult one. So once a cybercrime happens, it's pretty much happened. There's not very much you can do once an attacker's infiltrated your systems and stolen data out. Unless if the cyber criminals are in this country, it's a bit easier to investigate. So it's a lot of resources from a law enforcement perspective to invest into cybercrime. However, a lot of cyber criminals are not in this country or not in countries that we're particularly friends with. So there has to be a balance between the investment of resources, that are going to investigating these cyber crimes, to the actual outcome, the potential outcome that there could be. I think there's some updating of the cyber resilience bills and some of the computer misuse laws. So I think generally we've got a bit of catching up to do from a law perspective. But in terms of actually how seriously take it, very seriously, the cyber protect teams across the regions will speak to people who they see as potential future, not I won't say criminals, but a risk, and try and infiltrate them at a younger age to try and show them careers in cyber rather than going obviously on the wrong side of the law. So there's a lot of work involved in the prevention side of criminals, and obviously the Cyber Resilience Centres exist. We're a police-led initiative. This is why we're here to help prevent that crime, as the difficulty of once it happened is quite hard to deal with afterwards. But yeah, very seriously.
Good. Excellent. I don't think there's any more questions, so I think we'll probably look to wrap this up. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It's been really interesting. Thank you, Naomi and Jamie. It's been great. Thank you. And yeah, hopefully we'll have another one in a few months. So yeah, thank you, everyone.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Thanks. Bye.
You.
Cheers, Jamie. Thank you, Naomi.
Cheers.